Empire stunned. You're saying that was only part of their army. The Galactic Council Hall of Zorathia gleamed like polished crystal, floating high above the capital planet's core. Rows of officials and military leaders from across the Empire filled the vast chamber. Their uniforms sparkled with insignias that showed centuries of conquest. From the highest seats, the Zorathian Emperor looked down with pride. The galaxy was theirs. Every planet, every star system, every resource had been claimed or subdued. Nothing, he believed, could challenge Zorathia's might. "Report," the Emperor demanded, his voice echoing through the hall like a thunderclap. A young officer, trembling with excitement and nerves, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, our scouts report a fleet approaching from the uncharted Terran sector. Preliminary scans indicate medium-sized vessels equipped with advanced propulsion, but the numbers are small, perhaps no more than 100 ships." The hall erupted in laughter. 100 ships, a general sneered. "We could destroy them before they reach our outer colonies. Primitive humans think they can challenge us. Ridiculous." The Emperor raised a hand. "Silence. Do not underestimate them. Observe and report." Meanwhile, many light years away, Captain Alara Mendez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Resolute. The human fleet was not large by galactic standards. In fact, Zorathian intelligence would later call it a fraction of a human army. Yet Alara knew that numbers alone were meaningless if humans used their minds wisely. Her crew of humans, engineers, pilots, and tacticians moved with confidence and purpose. Every crew member knew the value of coordination, creativity, and courage. "Captain," Lieutenant Ryan said, pointing at the holographic display, "we are approaching the Zorathian patrol zone. Sensors show several ships monitoring our path. They will engage if we do not comply." Alara smiled slightly. "Let them come. We've trained for this. Remember, they expect predictable actions. We give them the opposite." Her words carried calm assurance, the kind that spreads through a team and turns anxiety into focus. The human fleet advanced, small but precise, moving like a school of coordinated predators through the void of space. Back in the council hall, Zorathian commanders watched as human ships entered the outer perimeter of the patrol zone. "Engage them," the Emperor ordered. "Destroy them quickly. The galaxy will not tolerate insolence." The first clash was brief, but memorable. Zorathian ships, heavily armed and numerous, moved to surround the human fleet. They fired volleys of energy blasts, expecting to annihilate the small human vessels. But humans moved differently. They did not fight in rigid formations. Instead, they split into small groups, using asteroid fields and debris as shields. They maneuvered unpredictably, dodging the Zorathian attacks and countering with precise strikes that disabled engines rather than destroy life pods. The council hall fell silent as reports came in. "Impossible," a senior officer muttered. "They are avoiding our attacks, and they are coordinated." "They are only 100 ships," another said, frustration creeping into his voice. "How can they cause so much damage?" The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Do not dismiss them yet. Observe carefully. This is unusual. Keep the fleet ready." On the human side, Alara observed her tactical screen, noting the Zorathian attack patterns. "They are rigid," she said to her tactical officer. "They rely on strength, not flexibility. We use speed, stealth, and thinking ahead. That is our advantage." A young pilot, Mara, piped up. "Captain, sensors show a narrow gap between their patrol ships. If we move now, we can slip past without heavy combat." "Do it," Alara ordered. "But watch for traps. Remember, they expect us to rush blindly." The fleet moved. Ships darted through gaps in the patrol, disappearing into asteroid fields and reappearing where Zorathians least expected. One by one, human crews disabled enemy engines, forced ships to retreat, and avoided casualties. It was not brute force. It was cleverness, patience, and teamwork. Back in the council hall, panic was rising among some commanders. "They are not following the rules of engagement," one cried. "We are trained for conventional battle. These humans, they are unpredictable." The Emperor remained calm, though his jaw tightened. "Yes, that is why we observe, keep tracking them. I want a full report on their tactics." Hours passed. Humans continued their advance toward Zorathian-controlled systems. News of their strange effectiveness spread quickly. Neutral species monitoring the conflict began whispering to each other, amazed at human ingenuity. Even some minor, Zorathian allies started questioning whether the Empire truly understood the Terrans. Ilara and her team paused near a small star system. They had achieved their immediate objective: safe passage through patrol zones and minor skirmishes that weakened the Zorathian advance. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. "We've shown them skill," she said, "but they will bring the full force soon. We must be ready to surprise them again." Her crew nodded. Engineers worked to repair minor damages, pilots reviewed new tactics, and tactical officers studied the Zorathian responses. Every human understood that survival depended on constant innovation. Zorathians had power and numbers, but humans had creativity, courage, and the will to endure. Meanwhile, back at the Empire, news reached the Emperor that stunned even him. "Your Majesty," a trembling officer reported, "they have managed to escape our patrols without losing a single ship. And according to sensors, some of our forward squads are already retreating in confusion." The Emperor leaned forward, staring at the display showing human ships moving away from the Zorathian patrol lines. "Explain," he demanded. Another officer hesitated. "It seems they are using the environment against us. Mining fields, asteroid belts, and nebulae, they hide, strike, and disappear. Their coordination is remarkable." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "Remarkable," he repeated quietly, almost to himself. Then he turned to the council. "Prepare for the main fleet. If these humans are clever with 100 ships, what will they do when fully armed?" Whispers ran through the council hall. Everyone sensed something unusual was unfolding. The humans were not merely fighting. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson in adaptability, courage, and strategic thinking. As night fell on the capital world, across light years of darkness, Ilara gathered her bridge crew. "This is only part of our mission," she said. "The Empire will respond, they always do, but we are not here to win through fear. We win through skill, strategy, and the human spirit. Keep focused, keep sharp. And remember, we fight not to conquer but to survive and protect those who cannot protect themselves." Her words resonated deeply. Every officer, pilot, and engineer felt a renewed determination. Across the human fleet, a quiet confidence grew: small ships with limited numbers, yet a crew capable of facing an empire without fear. The next day, Zorathian reports caused the Emperor to freeze. "You're saying that was only part of their army?" he asked, his voice tense with disbelief. "Yes, Your Majesty," the officer replied. "We have yet to encounter their main forces." The hall erupted into murmurs and alarmed conversations. Zorathia had always believed that no force could match its military might. And yet, these humans, small and seemingly fragile, had already shown brilliance in battle. If the reports were accurate, the Empire had underestimated humanity, and that could be their greatest mistake. Meanwhile, Ilara looked out at the endless stars, her fleet ready to face the coming storm. She knew the Empire would respond with overwhelming numbers, but she also knew something else. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless. That combination was something even the greatest empire could not fully anticipate. And so, in the cold, endless void of space, two forces prepared for a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. One relied on sheer power, tradition, and arrogance. The other relied on courage, intelligence, and humanity's indomitable spirit. Somewhere in the Empire, generals whispered that perhaps the humans were not to be dismissed. And somewhere in human ships, crews prepared to show exactly why their species had survived countless challenges and thrived against impossible odds. The galaxy had begun to notice the humans, and the humans had just begun to make their mark. The Zorathian Empire had never faced an enemy like the humans. In the Imperial Command Tower, the Emperor's advisors and generals argued endlessly over what to do next. Hundreds of star systems had already reported strange human attacks, fleets moving unpredictably, small patrols disabling larger Zorathian vessels, and humans appearing where they were least expected. "They are clever, Your Majesty," said General Corrin, his face tense. "Their tactics are unlike anything we've studied. We cannot predict their movements. They are adaptable." The Emperor clenched his hands. "Adaptable, every species can adapt. Numbers win wars, General. Prepare the main fleet. Crush them completely. I want no survivors." But even as orders were given, unease spread. Across the galaxy, observers, neutral species, traders, and even minor allies began whispering about humanity. Reports described not only human tactics but their creativity, courage, and strange resilience. Meanwhile, in the Terran sector, Captain Alara Mendez studied the latest intelligence gathered by scouts. "They are mobilizing their main fleet," she said to Lieutenant Ryan. "We expected this. They assume numbers alone will decide the outcome." Ryan frowned. "But there are thousands of ships coming. Can we really face them?" Alara shook her head. "Not with force alone, but we don't need to. Remember, humans win through intelligence, not size. We'll use strategy and terrain to our advantage. Speed, precision, and unpredictability will keep us alive." Across the fleet, engineers worked tirelessly to reinforce shields, upgrade engines, and test new weapons. Pilots practiced maneuvers in simulated asteroid belts, learning to strike quickly and vanish before the enemy could respond. Humans were preparing for a battle that could determine the survival of their sector. Days later, the main Zorathian fleet entered human territory. Thousands of ships moved like a metallic storm, their weapons ready to unleash fire across the void. On the bridge of the Resolute, Alara observed their approach. "They are arrogant," she said softly. "They think size and firepower alone can win. But they don't understand humans." The first engagement began near the planet Arden Prime, a mining world with dense asteroid fields surrounding it. Zorathian commanders sent waves of frigates to secure the system, expecting humans to retreat. Instead, humans used the asteroids as shields, hiding in plain sight. They deployed small drone scouts, drawing Zorathian ships into traps. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Alara ordered. "We hit fast and vanish. Focus on disabling, not destroying. We conserve strength for the bigger fight." The humans struck swiftly. Using synchronized attacks, they damaged engines, cut communication arrays, and forced enemy ships to retreat. Every action was precise, every move deliberate. Zorathian commanders grew frustrated. "They are too clever," one shouted. "Our numbers should be enough. How can such few ships cause this much trouble?" Across the battlefield, Mara, one of the youngest pilots, executed a daring move. She weaved her ship through tight asteroid clusters, luring a Zorathian cruiser into a narrow corridor. At the perfect moment, her ship released a pulse that disabled the cruiser's engines. It drifted helplessly while human ships escaped unharmed. "Excellent," Alara said. "This is why we fight smart. Numbers are not everything." Meanwhile, back on the Zorathian capital, whispers of concern had reached the Emperor. Advisors debated the unusual human strategies. "Your Majesty," one said, "they do not fight like other species. They improvise, coordinate, and adapt. They do not fear and they do not surrender. This is concerning." The Emperor remained silent for a moment. Then he said, "Concerning or not, we cannot allow them to continue. Gather all fleets. Deploy the main forces. Leave nothing to chance." Across the galaxy, humans anticipated this. Scouts reported the massive movement of the main Zorathian fleet, and Alara's tactical mind raced. "They will strike directly," she said. "They expect a head-on fight. But we will show them the cost of underestimating humans." Humans set up defensive positions around Arden Prime and nearby asteroid fields. They created false targets and decoys, making the enemy waste energy and resources. Engineers installed energy nets and traps in space lanes, forcing Zorathian ships to slow down and maneuver carefully. It was a battlefield where brains mattered more than weapons. When the main fleet finally arrived, the Zorathians unleashed their full power. Energy beams cut through space, missiles streaked past asteroids, and fleets collided with fury. But humans had prepared. They used the terrain, superior coordination, and precise strikes to counter the overwhelming numbers. Captain Alara led from the front, directing small squads into critical points. "Flank the left," she ordered. "Draw them into the nebula. Use the clouds to mask our movements. Remember, they expect predictability. Give them chaos instead." It worked. Zorathian squadrons, trained for traditional engagements, became disoriented. Humans used cloaking fields, asteroid cover, and rapid maneuvers to evade fire and strike unexpectedly. One by one, enemy ships were disabled or forced to retreat. Observers from neutral species, watching through long-range scanners, could not believe what they saw. "These humans, they fight like nothing we've ever seen," whispered an alien envoy. "Not with sheer force, but with intelligence and courage. They are extraordinary." As the battle raged, Zorathian generals grew desperate. "Increase the bombardment," shouted one. "We will crush them." But humans had anticipated this. Engineers on the ground of Arden Prime activated energy shields powered by local planetary resources, protecting human ships while leaving enemy fire wasted. Pilots lured enemy ships into asteroid traps, causing collisions and confusion. Every move was calculated, every reaction precise. Amid the chaos, a young human engineer, Talia, solved a critical problem. The fleet's communications had been jammed by a Zorathian wave. Within minutes, she had rerouted signals through planetary satellites, restoring coordination. The fleet moved as one again, striking with renewed precision. Alara observed the enemy fleet through her screen. "They have numbers, yes," she said quietly. "But they rely on force, not thought. They underestimate us, and that will be their mistake." By the end of the day, the humans had not only survived but gained the upper hand in key areas. Small Zorathian squadrons were retreating, engines damaged, communications scrambled. The main fleet, though powerful, had suffered significant losses and humiliation. Back in the Zorathian capital, the Emperor's calm mask finally broke. "Report," he demanded. The officer before him hesitated, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Your Majesty, their numbers, they are only a fraction of what they can bring. We have engaged only part of their forces, and even this small force has caused serious damage." The Emperor's eyes widened. "You're saying that was not even their full strength?" "Yes, Your Majesty," the officer replied, voice shaking. "We have yet to face their main army." The hall fell silent. Zorathia had always believed that no species could challenge its might. And yet these humans, small in number but vast in courage and intelligence, had already proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The whispers of admiration and fear spread quickly among generals and advisors. Meanwhile, in the human fleet, the crew celebrated quietly. They had survived impossible odds, and they had proven the strength of human ingenuity. But Captain Alara reminded them, "This is only the beginning. The Empire will strike back harder. We must remain vigilant, clever, and united. Our goal is not just survival, it is to show the galaxy the true power of humanity." Lieutenant Ryan looked around at the fleet, pride shining in his eyes. "They will never expect what humans can do next." Alara nodded. "They won't, and that is our advantage. Remember this, humans do not give up, Humans do not surrender and humans never stop learning. That is why we survive. That is why we fight. And that is why, one day, we will be remembered not just as survivors but as a force that changed the galaxy. As night fell across the Terran sector, the human fleet prepared for the next stage. Engineers repaired damage, pilots trained in asteroid belts, and strategists studied every possible move of the Zorathian Empire. Every human knew that the coming days would test their courage, intelligence, and spirit. Across the void of space, the Zorathian Empire regrouped. Its commanders were wary, its fleet battered, and its confidence shaken. They had encountered humans and survived, but only just. And now they faced the terrifying reality. Humans were not merely clever or brave. They were relentless, unpredictable, and united. The galaxy held its breath. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the limits of strategy, courage, and human ingenuity. And somewhere in the darkness, humans prepared to show that even a fraction of their strength could change the fate of stars. The first part of humanity's true mark on the galaxy was complete. The Empire had learned a lesson it would never forget: never underestimate humans. And the humans, they were only getting started. The galaxy was tense. Across the Terran sector, humans prepared for the inevitable. The Zorathian Empire, humiliated by the clever tactics of a small human fleet, was now bringing its full strength. Thousands of ships moved in precise formations, weapons charged and ready to unleash destruction. The Emperor had promised no mercy, but Captain Alara Mendez did not panic. On the bridge of the flagship Resolute, she observed the approaching enemy with calm determination. Her crew mirrored her confidence. Every pilot, engineer, and officer understood their mission: to survive, to protect, and to show the galaxy the power of humanity. "They think they can overwhelm us with numbers," Alara said quietly. "They do not understand that humans are more than ships and weapons. We have courage, creativity, and unity. That is our advantage." Lieutenant Ryan glanced at the displays. "Captain, sensor reports show the full Zorathian fleet. Thousands of vessels, it's overwhelming." Alara nodded. "Yes, it is, but we do not fight the way they expect. We fight smart and we fight together. Prepare all squads for immediate deployment. Engineers set traps in the asteroid belts. Pilots rehearse evasive patterns. Everyone stay sharp. Today we change the galaxy's story." Across the void, Zorathian admirals reviewed their strategy. "They are only humans," one muttered. "They cannot possibly resist the full force of our fleet." Another officer, more cautious, shook his head. "Do not underestimate them. Their previous victories were small-scale, yes, but they were smart victories. They may have tricks we cannot predict." The Emperor, seated on his throne aboard the Central Command Station, stared at the holographic display of human movements. "I want them crushed," he said, his voice cold. "Leave no corner of space untouched, and prepare for planet-wide bombardment if necessary." Meanwhile, Alara and her crew put their plan into action. Humans had anticipated the Empire's reliance on brute force. They did not attempt a head-on fight. Instead, they set up strategic positions across asteroid fields, nebula clouds, and abandoned colonies. Each position was carefully chosen to give humans a tactical advantage despite being vastly outnumbered. The first contact was swift. Zorathian squadrons entered the asteroid fields, expecting easy victories. Instead, human pilots executed complex maneuvers, weaving through the rocks, drawing enemies into narrow corridors. Hidden energy nets and drones disabled engines and weapons, creating chaos among the attackers. "Excellent," Alara said. "Keep moving. Remember, numbers mean nothing if they cannot strike us effectively." A squad led by Mara, the daring young pilot, performed a daring flanking maneuver. She led a group of ships through a dense nebula, undetectable by most sensors. Emerging behind a Zorathian cruiser, they fired precisely timed pulses that disabled its shields. The cruiser drifted helplessly as human ships vanished back into the nebula. On the main bridge, Alara smiled. This is why humans survive. We do not simply fight, we think, adapt, and innovate. Meanwhile, engineers on nearby planets activated hidden power stations that projected electromagnetic pulses. Several Zorathian capital ships lost control of their navigation systems, spinning helplessly into asteroid clusters. Humans had anticipated the Empire's reliance on technology and used it against them. Across the galaxy, neutral observers and minor species watched in awe. "These humans, they do not fight like any known species," whispered an alien diplomat. "They are not stronger, not larger, yet they overcome impossible odds. They are extraordinary." As the battle escalated, Alara's fleet executed a series of coordinated strikes designed to divide and confuse the Zorathian forces. Small groups of humans attacked supply lines, cutting communications and forcing enemy fleets into isolation. In one daring move, Talia, the fleet's young engineer, hacked into a Zorathian command drone, feeding false coordinates that led an entire enemy squadron into an asteroid trap. The humans did not just survive, they dominated key areas through intelligence, courage, and teamwork. On the Zorathian side, chaos spread. Generals argued and panicked as their best ships were disabled or forced into retreat. The Emperor's confidence faltered for the first time. "Impossible," he whispered. "They are only humans, how can they do this?" But the humans were not finished. Captain Alara had saved the most daring move for last. Hidden deep in uncharted space were reserves, hundreds of additional ships and allied fleets from neighboring systems who had secretly joined humanity's cause. The humans had only shown a fraction of their true power. As the main battle reached its peak, the hidden human fleets emerged simultaneously from multiple directions. Zorathian ships, already confused and weakened, now faced attacks from all sides. Humans struck with precision, exploiting every weakness in the enemy formation. Fleets that once seemed unstoppable now scrambled to regroup under relentless pressure. Alara transmitted a message to the Empire, broadcast across all frequencies. "We fight to protect, to survive, and to explore, not to conquer. But know this, we will never be ignored again. The galaxy has changed and humans will be remembered." The Emperor's face turned pale. This is impossible," he muttered. "Our full fleet, and yet they are everywhere." Zorathian admirals struggled to respond. Communications were jammed, ships disabled, and supply lines cut. Every move the Empire made was anticipated, countered, or turned against them. Humans had combined courage, intelligence, and technology in ways the Empire had never imagined. By the end of the battle, the Zorathian Empire had suffered a crushing defeat. Ships were destroyed or stranded, fleets scattered, and the Emperor's pride shattered. Humanity had not only survived overwhelming odds but had demonstrated that creativity, teamwork, and resilience could triumph over sheer power. On the human side, celebrations were quiet but meaningful. Alara gathered her crew. "Today, humans proved something important," she said. "We showed the galaxy that numbers and weapons alone do not determine victory. Intelligence, courage, and the willingness to work together, that is what makes us strong. Remember this day. Remember what humans can do when united." Across the Terran sector, human colonies sent messages of gratitude and hope. Citizens and soldiers alike celebrated the ingenuity, bravery, and determination of their fleet. Humanity had earned the respect of allies and even some former enemies. Meanwhile, the Zorathian Empire retreated, stunned and humbled. Its arrogance had been its downfall. Its lessons were bitter but undeniable. Never underestimate humans, never rely solely on force, and never assume that tradition guarantees victory. Back on the flagship Resolute, Alara looked at her crew. "The galaxy is watching," she said. "They have seen what humans can do." Our mission continues not for conquest but for protection, exploration, and the hope of a better future." Lieutenant Ryan smiled. "We did it, Captain, against all odds." Alara nodded. "Yes, against all odds, and we will do it again if we must. Humans survive, humans fight. And humans never stop learning. That is the greatest strength we have." Far away, in the ruined remains of Zorathian fleets, the Emperor stared at the stars. For the first time in centuries, he understood something vital. A single species, united by courage, intelligence, and the will to endure, could change the course of the galaxy. And so, humanity rose in the eyes of the stars. Not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as a force of hope, ingenuity, and resilience. From small fleets to entire star systems, humans had proven that even when outnumbered, they could achieve the impossible. The galaxy would never forget the day the Zorathian Empire learned the true meaning of underestimating humans. And somewhere deep in space, Captain Alara Mendez prepared for the next challenge. The Empire had been humbled, the galaxy awakened, and humanity had shown the stars what it truly meant to fight with courage, intelligence, and an unbreakable spirit. Because humans were unstoppable.